are we expecting to have Katie join us? Katie Kelly?
I sent her the link,
Okay.
so.
It is a few minutes after 5. Do we want to do a sound check on this to make sure it all works first and then call the meeting to order? Or do it afterwards?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it before we start.
Okay. Robin, right? Can you
Yeah.
help us with whatever that looks like?
Can Jose Aguilera's over there?
Yep, I'm good.
Okay, great, and we can hear you too. Superb. Okay, so we'll look forward to Director Kelly joining us. And okay, good evening. I'm Betsy Hagee. I'm the chair of the Wasco County School Board. What? And so happy to be here tonight to work on a goal that is both shared by the superintendent and the board, and that is measurement, so that the board can make decisions on measurement, and hopefully you guys do the same. At this point, I will hand the meeting over to Dr. Bernal, who is the entire rest of the agenda.
Yes, I will be helping us through the agenda. Also, the principals will be doing some reporting, and then Dr. Arley is going to be helping us with the data protocol tonight, that she'll be taking the board through. So we are having this board session tonight. We call it Centering Student Experience as the foundation for academic excellence. And we like to say what gets measured gets improved, but only when we listen to the story behind the numbers. So we've designed this session to begin to help the board to strengthen its data muscle, we call it, by exploring how student experience connects to academic outcomes. Next. So our objectives tonight is we want to understand how student and belonging influences engagement and achievement. We want to practice interpreting our youth truth data alongside our outcome data. We're going to use a structured protocol with all of you tonight to reflect on patterns, gaps, and implications in our district-wide student data outcomes. So tonight's data that we're looking at will be a high-level data, like we're not getting down to like nitty-gritty sub-through, all of that. That's going to come later. So this is more of an overview, high-level data. We're going to hear how our school leaders, our principals, who are all here with us tonight, are translating their data insights into action. And we're going to identify next steps for how the board can continue to monitor and support us with this work. Slide. We don't need to become data experts. Our goal is to grow our curiosity muscle. And by practicing how we look and talk about data together, we strengthen our ability to lead with insight and empathy. So the reason we're here is we want to build our shared comfort and capacity with data. We want to explore what our students are telling us through youth truth. We want to connect our student experience with academic outcomes, and we want to align this learning with our strategic plan. Next slide. So when we think of data as a way to ask better questions, it becomes less about evaluation and more about learning. Data invites curiosity. We can ask questions such as, why might we be seeing these patterns? What might this tell us about the student experience? What do we still need to understand? That's how we begin to start to build our collective muscle together. Next slide. We do want to talk about some norms as we explore data tonight. We want to be curious and grounded in evidence. We want to explore the data with curiosity and base our conversations on what it shows, letting evidence guide our insights rather than assumptions or prior beliefs. We want to assume positive intent and learn together. We want to listen with respect and trust. Remember that everyone wants the best for our students here. We use data as a tool for learning and improvement, not for blame. We want to value diverse perspectives. We recognize that people may see things different in the data, and that's a good thing. These perspectives help us understand the full story and make stronger, more thoughtful decisions. And we want to focus on systems and students. We want to focus on structures, supports, opportunities that shape outcomes, keeping the learning and well-being of students at the center of every decision. Okay, so board members, in your packet, you have a little self-assessment. Looks like this. It's a school board data engagement self-assessment. about 10 minutes to go through and complete it. Don't put your name on it. It's no names. But we are gonna collect it so that we can get a baseline of where our board is with understanding data, what kinds of data we have, how comfortable you are with interpreting data, etc. So it'll take about 10 minutes. We'll give you 10 minutes to fill it out, and then we'll collect it from you. Again, no names. This isn't a name thing. This is just where's the board collectively in understanding data. Okay? It's probably take about 10 minutes. And there's some reflection questions on the back. Two. And principals, feel free. Take it too if you want. Okay, anybody need a little bit more time? Director Kramer, you good? All right, so we had you, there were like 4 sections. One was around data engagement and comfort. One was around just familiarity with data types in our district. One was about our performance growth targets, and then some reflective questions. And I just want to take a minute to hear from our board members, where do you want to grow over the next year as it relates to your comfort with data?
I'll be happy to speak up. I mean, just becoming familiar with how and when you collect it, the intent behind the metric. To give us a good working knowledge so that we can question it, and we can participate in making it better or determining a direction for our community, which is our district. And also where it's compared, comparatively to other districts or the nation, not that maybe we should set a high standard, but it's also good to know where we land.
I think what I'd like to know is, as we're getting this information, do we know if we need to do a hard stop? Do we need to pivot? I don't think we should wait till the end of the school year to realize that we've taken a wrong turn. I think it would be nice to know that, we think we're like losing some steps, but it would also be nice to know what are the plans to try and make that steps go back up rather than maybe at the year. And then you've lost a whole year.
How about you, David?
Yeah, basically understanding what all these, how we collect them and what we end up doing with them. I found as I was going through them that I have heard of them, I'm familiar kind of with them, but I don't consider myself an expert in them by any means. And I would like to become an expert in them.
If you're not in education regularly, we wouldn't expect you to be an expert.
Right.
Yeah, you're not, or from an education background, if that's not your professional background.
Then I'll scale it back to proficient.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. Jose, how about you?
I'm probably most familiar with a lot of these, having seen them over the years and the data. I think for me, just trying to make sure that we're consistent and also find opportunities and ways to be able to simplify our communication outwardly towards family and the community. So I think a lot of times we, as board members, sometimes we start to learn the jargon and start to talk in that same manner, using acronyms and stuff, and just kind of the constant reminder of just making sure we use kind of simple language and when we're kind of discussing it and sharing it out to the broader stakeholder groups.
How about you, Director Kramer?
I'm still reflecting.
Okay. That's fair. Director Jones?
I guess if there's, like, some of them go by grades, like, I think when we're meeting, we talked about 8th grade, they check on that. Maybe understanding why it's done at that grade, because if they fail algebra in 9th grade, I would think it'd be better to change, look at it in 7th grade instead of until 8th, because then by the time the data is all done, you're already in there.
Building on what Jose said, remind me of engagement. As leaders, we need to be honest about what the data is. We need to be putting the data out there, and we need to be engaging the community and the stakeholders, the students, families, everybody pretty much, in helping us move that metric, because I don't think all the people at this table are going to move it by themselves. You cannot. You can measure it, you can inspire, we should be inspiring, but you can't do it by yourselves. We have to inspire people around these metrics ultimately, and that's, I feel like, a strong goal for the board and the administration.
Okay. That's very helpful, thank you. So I'm gonna turn the time over to Dr. Ali. Go for a few slides. Next slide. Okay. I'm gonna turn the time over to Dr. Ali, and she is gonna start taking us through a data protocol. So Dr. Ivy, the floor is yours.
Thank you. First, apologies for not being there in person. I think that it's probably better for you all that I'm not there in person, because you don't want whatever I have. But if you cannot hear me at any point, just raise your hand or speak up so you can make sure that you hear what's happening. As Dr. Bernal mentioned, I'm going to take us through really a data protocol. I want to give us a chance to start building our muscles around data. I know that we all have varying degrees of experience and familiarity with the data, and appreciating just the desire to become proficient. And so we're going to start doing some of that tonight. And so what we're going to start with is the notion of belonging. Really, our big idea that we want to start with is that students with a strong sense of belonging are more likely to engage in school. And if they're engaging in school, they're more likely to perform well academically. And belonging isn't just a feel-good concept. It's really a measurable driver of academic success. And so what you'll see here on that slide, this is from a U.S. Department of Education research brief that came out in 2015, but is still very relevant now. And it looks at several factors that contribute to a student's sense of belonging. Their academic motivation, emotional stability, personal characteristics, the support they receive from parents, peers, teachers, and then even the safety and environment of the school itself. So like the actual physical building. And when these elements are in place, students feel known, connected, and capable, which helps them engage and persist in their learning and ultimately have better academic outcomes. So I heard some of you all saying you want to understand why the data is the way that it is. And so what we want to do is we want to kind of complicate the data that we're looking at, because what we know is that a number doesn't tell the whole story. And so one of the ways we're going to complicate that tonight is just by looking at some bigger data around just belonging and engagement before jumping straight into academic data. Because research consistently shows us that students with a strong sense of belonging, they're more resilient, they're more focused, they're more motivated, and these are all qualities that directly support academic success. So you can go to the next slide, Robin. Because this is something that has been a key priority for North Wasco for several years, we were able to fund access to the Youth Truth Survey last year through the intensive program. And this allowed us to get survey data that captures perceptions from students, family, and staff. This is the first time the district has had this in recent years, And what it allows us to do is not only see one aspect of belonging and engagement, but to really see it across several different groups. So we can look at where there's commonalities, where there's patterns, where there's gaps, where there's opportunities. This survey measures key areas such as belonging, relationships, engagement, academic challenge, and school culture. And it's conducted district-wide once per year, giving us a consistent, comparable snapshot of our community's experiences. There's also a lot of work that happens between this particular survey in helping teachers and helping administrators really understand the data so they can really use that data to drive the work they're doing in their schools. And so, Dana, to your point, when you mentioned we don't want to wait till the end of the year to find out, if there's things that we can do to change, this is what the Youth Truth Survey is helping us to do, is to really have the data to be able to create change in the moment rather than waiting until the end of the year when, like you mentioned, sometimes that's too late. So the first administration of this particular survey was in spring of 2025. And we had a total of 2,082 respondents, which is pretty great considering it was the first time that we rolled this out. And students in grades 3 through 12 completed the survey during class time. And this was really important because we wanted to make sure that we had strong participation and really a representative view of student experience. So the goal with this data, looking at it tonight, is because it gives us a powerful opportunity to see our schools through the eyes of our students, what's working, what's not, and where we can grow. So that next slide, this is going to show only student data. So as Dr. Bernal mentioned, we're going to keep the data pretty high level tonight because we're going to keep getting deeper into the data as we go through this year. And so what this little snapshot shows is just the results for students. So this is broken down by school level. So what you'll see is elementary, middle, and high school. And again, as I mentioned before, with the different kind of themes the Youth Truth looks at, you're going to see how students perceive engagement, relationships, school culture, academic challenge, and belonging. So I just want you to let's take a minute and a half to look over this. This is, again, really high numbers, right? This doesn't tell the whole story. This just gives us a snapshot. And I want you to think, what are you noticing when you look at this data? Are there any surprises that come up for you? Are there any things that help you maybe affirm your assumptions? And then what questions does this raise about how students are experiencing school in D21? I'll just give you, like I said, just a minute and a half or so, and then I'm going to ask what people are thinking.
I noticed that the academic challenge and the sense of belonging is relatively consistent through K-12.
Donna, tell me more about that.
As you're looking at academic challenge, it's 49% at elementary, 44 at middle school, and 48 at the high school. So the variance is only about 5 percentage points. And then the sense of belonging is rather low.
So we're seeing some consistency in numbers in certain categories that no matter if students are elementary, middle, or high school, that we're seeing some of the kind of same results across those different grade bands. What else are we noticing?
I noticed that belonging in the next page, sorry, just skip ahead, belonging is part of every academic indicator. And it seems like at, 30 to 40%, there's opportunity there to improve that, do what we can to influence that. I am unclear about academic challenge. I can't relate that to anything, so I have no anchor there on that. To know if they are unchallenged or, man, this is the best we can do, I am non-clear. I don't know what culture is measuring. I guess that's school culture, how they feel in the hallway and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I can speak into that a little bit, and Dr. Bernal, if you want to jump into, but academic challenge is basically asking whether or not students feel challenged within their classes. So do they feel like their classes are actually helping them to grow academically? Or do they feel like they're just kind of going through the motions? And you are right on with culture. So culture is really looking at the school culture. Is it positive? Do students feel welcome when they come into school? Do they feel seen and heard? Does the culture just like spark joy and positivity or not so much? Does that kind of help a little bit?
It does. And then so the academic challenge, about half the students don't feel challenged, is what I'm reading that from this data, and then half of them do. And then in the relationships and engagement, it rings true. In elementary school, you're young, you're open. Middle school, you're in angst, you're not interested. And in high school, you determine it might be a little more important. So, yeah.
Well, and these percentages represent students who responded positively, so like on the highest positively, right? There's a range in these responses.
Yeah, so go ahead. This is a
This is
percentage.
just percent
Exactly.
positive response.
Right.
This does not represent the whole picture.
Wait, it's percent positive? It's not an aggregated number? It's not like.
No, it's percent positive. So what this means is that with engagement in elementary, 85% of students had a positive reaction to being engaged in school
Okay,
versus 33 at middle school, 48 at high school.
Yeah, belonging is a very key number there. Only a third of students feel like they belong or fit. I think belonging probably has a lot of definitions. And we probably need to build some academic challenge. I understand it's very difficult in public school when maybe half your students are prepared to be there and the other half not. So it's a challenge.
What about for folks who haven't kind of shared yet? What else are you noticing, or maybe what surprises you or affirms your assumptions?
I think it's interesting that the elementary relationship is 74 and the culture is only 15. I'm kind of confused on that.
Right, and I've been looking at that too with the belonging, because I feel like the relationship and the belonging would be, since it's such a strong relationship, you'd think that you'd have higher belonging.
I'm not clear what the questions were to assess that from elementary school children. If I asked I wouldn't expect them to understand a concept of culture. I don't think it matters that much to an elementary child, although you can see it increasingly matters because people start to realize and have opinions as they get older that their environment does affect how they feel.
Mm-hmm.
And the high school number is directly correlated at 33% with relationships and belonging.
Yep.
I think it's important for us, like you just said, to what was the question that was asked, and that's something that we have spent some time looking at, because if you ask a 5-year-old, how's the culture of your school? But I will say that the questions
Don't use those.
Yeah, I mean, they aggregate this data with those terms, they're not necessarily the terms that the kids are asked, they're not asked directly in the same ways. Yeah.
And it's interesting, it may not, culture, they're saying at the elementary school it's not good. Only 15% thought it was positive. So maybe that's the shock and awe coming into a school environment. And they have to deal with a lot of social issues. And they do all the way through. But it's also interesting that we can affect culture and relationships and academic challenge to create the engagement and belonging, maybe.
Well, and I think, sorry, go ahead.
Just to clarify, but in the relationship questions, does that include peer relationships?
Yeah, so I think it's peer relationships and it's adult to student relationships.
That would be interesting to separate here.
Absolutely.
And I don't know if you can disaggregate. Well, we have that based on that, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. High level. But that's a good question.
And the most important aspect of this, again, is that we're not going to become experts in data, but I want to help us to be able to look at data to be able to ask better questions. Right? So, expert proficient. But I think that what you were doing is beautiful, right? You're kind of complicating the data a little bit. What does the question say here? And what does this mean? And did students understand? And so this really helps us to better think about the data in ways that can deepen our understanding of what it is that we're looking at. Because if we look at these just face value as a number, we're missing a lot of what's underneath of that. So all of these are great ideas, and we're going to get further into this in terms of what are the questions actually asking, right? And how can we better understand the correlation between these? Because some of this data maybe is like, well, I don't really understand. Why are the numbers like this? And so as we move through this year, we're going to keep digging into this data so that we can make more sense of it at a deeper level. Any other final thoughts looking at this data?
I think for me, just looking long term, I mean, this is obviously a snapshot in time, and it'd be interesting to look at disaggregated data, especially like at the elementary level, at even just at a building level, just to kind of see and also track cohorts to see, what are those fluctuations doing based on their experience and movement over grade levels. So
How long have we been gathering? How many years of data
This
do
was
we
our
have?
first
Oh, okay.
spring 2025.
to start,
Just started.
So we'll
Yeah.
get one in the spring, and that
Do it
will be
again
fun.
next spring.
Yes. And so that will be something that we can look at. The other thing, just for some of that, Jose, some of that kind of snapshot over time, looking at this aggregated data, is that the elementary schools have been using a thing called Upbeat. And so that Upbeat survey is not the same as Youth Truth, but it does give us some of that student experience data. And so we can look at that too, because it's really important that we're looking at kind of multiple data points. Are any of the elementary principals able to speak a little bit to what Upbeat does?
Upbeat was more of a staff.
Staff, okay.
Yeah, but last year, the Culture and Climate TOSAs at all three elementary buildings conducted like student belonging surveys just in-house. So we have that data. It was like done with a Google form, but that was done K-5 at the elementary level last year. But the Upbeat data was like just staff facing and kind of how staff were feeling about those things. So that could be compared to the Youth Truth staff feedback.
Thank you, AJ.
I think one thing that I might have come up with that might explain the 74% on relationships versus the middle school and high school is that kids spend are significantly more time with the same people every day versus middle school. There's a whole new scheduling system, so it's probably why it dips.
Yeah, it's a really good point. Right, because in elementary, you're going to have your same teacher, right, and your same students, and especially for like our 6th grade students that are just getting into the changing schedules in middle school, that's a pretty big shift. Okay, so let's go ahead and go to the next slide. And I know that some of y'all already looked at this, but what I wanted to do here is, as we think about student outcomes, it's important to remember that academic performance doesn't happen in isolation. And sometimes if we look at data points by themselves without looking at the whole picture, it's easy to think, well, we see 3rd grade reading, students aren't doing very well, and we end there. But we really want to think about this whole picture, right? A whole student as they're entering our schools. And so as we just looked at, right, if we're looking at maybe a sense of belonging being a little bit low, that can also impact our students' academic outcomes because maybe they don't feel like they're able to show up or take risks, and that's going to impact their ability to succeed. So what you can see on this table is just connecting some key academic indicators, and we call these common metrics, and we'll get to those in just a little bit, with what students are telling us about their experience. And so the goal here is to see how perception and performance data work together to give us a fuller picture. So, for example, if we look at attendance, this might link to things like engagement and belonging. So we might ask, what might help more students feel connected enough to show up consistently? If we look at 3rd grade reading, this connects to relationships and belonging. So we're seeing this pattern here of belonging. We might ask, how do early relationships with teachers influence learning confidence? We know if students feel more confident, if their self-efficacy is higher, they're going to be able to take more risks, which is going to help them academically. 8th grade math links to academic challenge and belonging. So we might ask, how do perceptions of challenge relate to performance outcomes? So we look at that academic challenge. Do students feel like they're able to lean into that challenge and that's kind of a learning edge that there's going to be able to help them grow? Or do we feel like maybe it's a little bit challenging for them and that causes them to shut down? 9th grade on track, which essentially is asking if students have the amount of credits they need to graduate high school. This links to belonging and culture. So we might ask, how does the transition to high school shape belonging and persistence? And graduation connects to engagement and relationships. So we might ask, how does sustained belonging throughout the school support completion of high school? So this could be read a lot of different ways. This is just an example of some connected youth truth domains. I would argue that we could probably connect every single youth truth domain to each one of these academic indicators, because this is really important for us to be able to see that connection. And the student experience doesn't replace academic data, but it deepens it. And so looking at both together really helps us to spot patterns and identify opportunities for growth. So we're going to look at some academic data, but what I'm asking you to do when you look at that is to think about what patterns or connections you notice between perception data, what we just looked at, and performance data, and where might belonging or engagement serve as leverage for improving outcomes. So kind of keep those questions in mind as we go. We can go to the next slide. So as Dr. Bernal mentioned, we're going to start building our collective muscle around looking at and making meaning of data, and we're going to do that together now. And so we're going to think about what these numbers are telling us, right? And then what the deeper story is underneath of the numbers. And you can go to the next slide, Robin. So looking at data deliberately really helps us to slow down and see what the information is telling us without jumping straight to conclusions. It's really easy to look at numbers and jump to conclusions, but that's not going to help us to be able to really unearth these better questions to create sustainable change over time. And this really helps us to keep our curiosity and learning lens so that we can not just evaluate the numbers, but really think deeply about the numbers and how we can move through change. And so I just kind of have 4 steps on here. This is just a way for us to really think about as we look at data. First is just being to observe the data. So what patterns, trends, or surprises stand out? We just did that with Youth Truth. To analyze the data, what might these findings tell us? So I'm not sure who spoke up, but whoever did about, oh, I noticed that maybe in elementary school, relationship is higher because we only have, one teacher. That would be analyzing the data, right? Because you're really thinking about why the numbers are saying what they are. I'm using the data for growth. So thinking about how we can move forward as a district. And then asking better questions. So what new questions does that data raise? And what do we need to understand more, be able to take action? So the data we're going to look at tonight is going to be district level data, high level, looking at longitudinal performance growth targets, or LPGTs. Those are acronyms that you probably saw in your self-assessment. They actually changed. They're no longer LPGTs. They're just now PGTs. In our most recent legislation with SB141. Basically, these targets are part of Oregon's Student Investment Account, SIA, all the acronyms, within our integrated programs, which basically means a lot of programs integrated together to try to really think about how to support student success. So things like high school success, things like early literacy. And these are required under statute. And so what the Oregon Department of Education did is they partnered with each district to co-develop a set of targets as part of a shared system for monitoring progress and improvement over time. And so the data that we're going to look at covers 5 years of targets, showing both progress and then areas for continued growth. What you'll notice is that we would have had targets set for 28-29 school year, but given our SB 141 legislation that came out and is going to shift the kind of landscape of accountability, that was actually paused for this year. And so you're only going to see those targets through 27-28 school year. And so each district is required to set 3 types of targets for every metric. I will write this all down for you so you have it earlier because this is a lot of information. Every district sets a baseline target, and that really represents the minimum level of progress we would expect to achieve or maintain over a 5-year period. Baselines are grounded in historic trends and what we believe is a reasonable outcome given our current strategies and investments. So what happens is the district looks at their data over time and says, given what we're doing right now, given where we're putting our investments, we think this is a reasonable target that we can meet. That's going to be your baseline target. Your stretch target, this is going to be an ambitious yet realistic goal. And so this is going to represent significant improvement beyond any baseline expectation. What you'll see here, oh, thanks, Robin. You'll see that baseline target is going to be lower than your stretch target because the goal with the stretch target is that we're stretching a little bit to say, if everything was in place exactly how we want it to be, what is the kind of result? Where do we think we can go? And so they really reflect our aspirations to raise overall achievement and reduce disparities. The last type of target is a gap closing target. And so this focuses on reducing disparities between groups of students especially our focal group students. We look at students with disabilities, we look at multilingual learners, we look at students of color. And so the goal here is to monitor and close achievement gaps or opportunity gaps, and both within our district and then compared to the state as a whole. So these are our 3 different types of targets. What we're really going to focus on tonight is that baseline target. This is the target the district says we really think that we can meet this based on the work that we've been doing and our investments. And we're going to look at those in 5 different areas. Those 5 different areas are called common metrics. And again, you saw these on your self-assessment. And those common metrics are part of SIA. I'm going to tell you kind of high level what those common metrics are, and you're going to see the definition of each one of those metrics on the slides you have in front of you. So you don't have to memorize any of what I'm saying. The first common metric is regular attenders. And this means any student who is attending more than 90% of enrolled school days. What we know is that if students aren't in school, they're not going to be learning. And so this is a key metric for us to really understand so that we can think about how we can support students to show up so that they can engage in learning. The second common metric is 3rd grade reading. This is students who are proficient in the English Language Arts Assessment, the OSAS, by the end of 3rd grade. And you'll see that there. The next is 9th grade on track. This is going to be students who are earning at least 1/4 of their graduation credits by the summer after 9th grade. So they are on track to graduate at the end of their freshman year. And then we have 4-year graduation. This is students earning a regular or modified diploma within 4 years. We go to that next one. Perfect. And then the last one is 5-year completion. So this is students earning a regular, modified, extended, or adult diploma or GED within 5 years. So those are our 5 common metrics. The fun part about our new legislation is we're adding 2 more metrics that we will be talking about later this year, including early grade attendance and 8th grade mathematics. So if you're wondering, wait a minute, why is there not math on here? There will be soon, but this is going to be a new metric that we'll start looking at probably come spring. So I just threw a lot of information at you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you just to spend a little bit of time looking at this data, looking at those 5 common metrics. Again, regular attendance, 3rd grade reading, 9th grade on track, 4-year graduation, 5-year completion, and just jot down some notes. What are you noticing? Are there certain patterns? Are there things that you're wondering as you look at this data? What you're going to see is that you're going to see the target for 23-24, and then you'll see the actual in that second column. If the actual is green, that means that we met or exceeded our target. If it's red, it means that we did not meet that target. We don't have the 24-25 data out yet. It should be out pretty soon. So right now we're looking at the 23-24, but that should still give us an idea of where we are at so that we can really get a sense of what we're doing moving forward. So I'm going to pause, and let's say 7 minutes. We'll come back at 5:55 to look through this data and again, just jot down notes. What are you noticing? What are you wondering? Any connections, patterns, or trends? And Dr. Bernal, if you can kind of watch people, and if we don't need that much time, we can pull it back together sooner.
Sounds good.
All right, that was about time. Do we need more time? Do we feel like we're ready to talk?
We're ready.
Ready? Okay. So, Robin, if you can go to the next slide, we're going to use what's called an Atlas protocol. And Jose and Dana, you're probably familiar with this because we did this a little bit last year. This protocol really just helps us to slow down a little bit when we look at data, because oftentimes as people, we want to jump straight to like, this is what the data means. And so I'm going to like slow you way down tonight, which I'm going to tell you right now can be very, very frustrating. And so just know that this is going to be a little challenging, but again, it's going to help us to grow our muscle. And so the first step of the Atlas protocol is just to describe the data. So this focuses only on what is visible or factual in the data without interpreting it, without judging it, without asking questions. And so I just have some sentence stems on here that might help. I personally find this part the hardest because I want to jump straight into this tells me or I wonder about. So I know it's hard. I know it's a challenge, but I have faith in y'all. So you might say things like, I noticed that, or a pattern I see is, or it looks like. I'm wondering on why is a little bit on the getting to the next part. So I probably shouldn't put that one on there. Something that stands out to me is, so for example, you might say something like, I noticed that reading proficiency increased by 8% over 2 years. So we're going to try that. I'm just going to jot down notes. I'll send these out after. And so let's just start with, what do you notice about any of the data about regular attendance, third grade reading, ninth grade on track? for your graduation or 5-year completion? Again, just what do you notice? Patterns, what stands out to you?
I noticed that the targets progress steadily up in sort of a uniform fashion, but not completely clean metrics. So, like in the first one, stretch targets are 2 times the baseline target, but that there's some uniformity in the patterns of going up.
I noticed that in 23-24, on-time graduation, we already exceeded this year's target number.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's incredible. Let's just like sit with that for a minute. So already exceeded the next. That's amazing.
I noticed that in all of the metrics, that the gap closing targets for 23-24 were meeting.
Yes, amazing.
I see that, so your 3rd grade reading, the number, we didn't meet it on both the baseline and the stretch, and projecting out to 27-28, it's a significant increase. And so, yeah.
Thank you, and I appreciate you stopping there. That was great. So a significant increase.
Yeah, I was gonna do it.
You with the gold star. If I had stars, I would hand them to you right now.
Thanks.
It seems that our gaps are biggest in 3rd grade reading and attendance.
Okay.
If these are the PGTs the state is using to measure all their districts, is that correct?
So how this works is there's a process by which a group of staff from ODE actually meet with the district to say, what do you want your targets to look like? I've been in a number of those conversations, and really the goal is not to compare to other districts, but really to say what is reasonable for your district. Because of SB 141, we're going to see that change a little bit. And so what we're actually going to see is that the state right now is working through the rulemaking process. And so there will be comparable kind of district numbers that will come out to say, as a comparable district, this is about where you should be. And so that's going to change a little bit. But for right now, this is not comparing to other districts. This is only saying what is reasonable in North Wasco, given where we are at and given our current investments.
Okay, because that's 2 things I wrote down at the top of my paper is how do these goals relate to our peers or our near peers, and then how would they relate to top performing districts?
Yeah, so we can definitely dig into that a little bit. Saying peers and near peers right now is a little bit tough because we don't have that information at the state level. And that was one of the reasons why that particular bill came forward, because people wanted to see that data. But we can look at like state and county level. So we can definitely pull that data in a couple different ways as we move through this process. Okay, anything else that we notice or any patterns that we see?
If we chose these and there's 5 and the last 3 are all related to graduation.
So we didn't choose the metrics, we choose the targets. So every single district has those same 5 metrics. We call them the common metrics. But the district decides the numbers, right? To say, we think we can get about here.
Yeah, so then my observation is that it's interesting, the state selected these 5 when the last 3 of 5 are just about graduation on track, which is you're measuring your product, basically, but not the quality of the product necessarily. And it's interesting, the last time they assessed reading is in 3rd grade. It seems like it could improve from there. Not sure, not clear, but maybe.
I think it's because there is a direct correlation that 3rd grade reading results to graduation.
Yeah, graduation in prison, I know.
They're definitely.
All right, what about else for describe? Y'all are doing an amazing job at also interpreting. We'll get there, I promise. What else for describe?
I wrote that it looks like the high school is doing a good job of getting kids back on track compared to the 9th grade on track.
So you saw a lower 9th grade on track at a higher high school graduation rate?
Yeah.
Okay.
Also noticed that Phil's stretch target for this year is really big.
For which category, for which metric, CJ?
For the stretch target, all students, it takes a bigger leap than some of the other ones.
Are you looking at
On-time graduation.
On graduation, okay.
Good question.
Is Phil there? Phil, are you ready for this?
I am
No, and
so excited, can't believe it.
I know you are. I can feel it like coming through the screen. All right, let's go ahead and go to interpret. So we can go to the next slide. So when we interpret data, this really explores what the data might mean, which some of you all are already starting to do or did a beautiful job of stopping yourself before. I applaud you. I'm not good at that. I'm only good at facilitating and I'm not good at doing it. So here you might think about like what explanations for the data are. So again, some sentence ends like this might suggest that, perhaps this relates to, I wonder if this could be connected to, it seems possible. So let's go ahead and spend a little bit of time just interpreting. So how might you interpret some of this data?
The regular attender rate may impact the 3rd grade reading scores.
Because we're allowed to interpret now, AJ, can you tell me a little bit more about why you think that might be the case?
Well, we just talked a little bit about how, like, I mean, if students are missing school, if they're not there 90%, they're missing a significant amount of instruction, and those are the same students that we're asking to take the test. We're not just asking students to take the test, they're there 90% of the time or more.
And something when we dig into attendance a little bit more, I know I found really interesting is that oftentimes you look at attendance, you see higher attendance as students are younger, and then you see attendance kind of dwindle as they get older. And in North Wasco, that's actually flipped. So we see lower levels of attendance at the elementary level, and then as students get older, their attendance increases. And so I think thinking about, AJ, what you just shared, that regular attender rate being a little bit lower at the elementary could have a direct impact on that 3rd grade reading proficiency level.
Along those lines, I'm also wondering, because the gap is so much larger in the 3rd grade reading, what role language plays?
Tell me one more time. Sorry, I missed it.
I'm wondering if there is a language component to the 3rd grade reading based on the fact that the gap size is much larger than other metrics.
So CJ, are you thinking about like for our second language learners or for students in DLI? Is that kind of what you're thinking there?
Yes.
I think it would be interesting if we had the data to compare to the kids that are in the dual immersion program.
Yes, I agree. And again, these are all the things I'm writing these down so that as we're thinking about this year, we can start bringing in these different types of data so we can keep digging deeper. So maybe one of these would be, this might suggest that students in the DLI program maybe have a different reading outcome than students aren't in the DLI program. We don't know that, but it might suggest that.
And then I think another way to look at the data would be to aggregate it based on students who attended 90% or more. Well, because I think that would have a more accurate picture of what we're accomplishing with the kids that are there.
yes.
Absolutely.
I just wonder if the 3rd grade reading might be connected to like kindergarten readiness. I feel like there's a trend of kids who aren't ready for kindergarten.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Like, what does that look like to you? Is that Autumn?
Yes.
I'm getting good at recognizing voices.
I don't have specific data for that, but it seems like year after year now, it's been established that we have a large group of kids coming into kindergarten who either haven't experienced preschool or have, right, no school experience, we're seeing, you know, bigger behaviors than we used to see. And there's definitely been a change in that over the last several years.
Thank you. Amy,
Yeah.
can you speak a little bit to like the special education aspect of that as well?
She's not here.
Oh, yeah, okay. I can speak a little bit to that. So we are also noticing a higher level of students who are coming into kindergarten already on IEPs. So I think there's a both and, right? Both students who maybe haven't experienced any sort of preschool or formal education before kindergarten, and then students who have, but are coming in with significant needs.
And I think, kind of to build on that a little bit, like our district interim like assessments, like we have high growth but low achievement. Yeah, students are growing a lot, but they're still below grade level.
Right. I have a question on this third grade reading. Since the actual is below what the target was, why are we forcing the targets in the future even higher when we haven't achieved the 28.4? Why aren't we doing the next year at 28.4 and hit it and possibly go past it and then look at the target numbers moving up? It seems like we almost set ourselves up to fail with that gap.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important kind of implication of the pause in these target settings with the state, because that would have been the goal this spring, is to look at the actuals and then look at those targets to say, do these still make sense? But because that was paused, those targets are still what they were before we had the actuals for 23-24.
And when we wrote the 25-27 in graded guidance, all districts were given specific direction to keep their targets the same, not change them. So
Yes.
it would have been my preference to, yes, make some adjustments, but if that was not allowable in this round, to do it on 25-27. So we had to keep.
And then keep.
All right.
The 24, 25, yeah, so, then that can also give us more information on whether we're going in the right direction.
Do we have data for prior school years before 23?
We do. Yep. So we can look at that too. So I can write that down. We can look at growth over time. We have data from quite far back. So that is all also available on like the ODE website. If you want to look at that, you can look at report cards from years back. Like I said, 24-25 isn't ready yet, but it should be soon. And so looking at that kind of, you know, growth over time is going to be really helpful for us to better understand where there's opportunities. All right, let's go to the last part of the protocol, just because I want to make sure principals have time to shine. We want to go to that next slide. This is just implications. So this really focuses on kind of the so what, now what. So identifying actions, questions, or decision us as a group, as a school board, as a leadership team might make, considering what we know about the data. So we might consider a next step could be to support improvement we could. So let's take a little bit of time to think about what are some implications for practice based on what we already know. This might also be like, we might look at this type of data. We might ask these kind of questions. So anything that you're thinking of as a next step based on what we have seen tonight so far regarding our data.
One thing that kind of came up earlier that may be an implication is that the low achievement in third grade reading may really impact ninth grade track. So it's good to get to high school, they may have more catching up to do.
Absolutely, right? And I was saying earlier, like these numbers don't exist in isolation. And so if we're looking at over time, we could even track like individual students to say, what does third grade English look like? How is that impacting ninth grade? Excellent implication.
I would be curious as it relates to third grade reading, just thinking about like our iReady data and how we are tracking our local assessments, because I know that what we're seeing in our iReady data is that some of our kids are making a year's growth, 2 years growth, 3 years growth at a time, like all in 1 year? And is there a correlation or a predictor in that data of what we could potentially see in 3rd grade as kids are moving through iReady and or for future success moving towards 8th grade math and or being able to read, and then 9th grade on track for graduation, etc.
And Dr. Bernal, just will you talk just kind of briefly about what iReady is?
iReadies are local assessments that we do internally as we're tracking data for reading and math of all of our students. So there are interim assessments, we call them, and we give them, is it 3 times a year for students?
Yeah.
3 times a year. So that is, in that data, when we're analyzing that data, we're able to see that kids are actually making huge growth. But that's not necessarily correlating or interpreting to this data, the state assessment.
And I think what's really important too is that that data is going to give us more than a snapshot in time, because we're going to be able to see a student's growth throughout the year instead of a one-time assessment. And so that's important data to be able to look at to say, you know, how is that student doing? What interventions have we tried? What has worked? What hasn't? Oftentimes with the state assessments, by the time we get those back, they're not necessarily helpful in changing practice. They're really helpful at looking at high-level patterns, but they're not going to help us to support that individual students, whereas those interim and diagnostic assessments such as iReady can do that for us. What other implications for practice? Let's think about, maybe we can share 2 more.
So like on 3rd grade reading, for the students that aren't achieving, it seems like moving to 4th grade is just stacking more requirements on them so the burden becomes greater without, it's just a hole that you never dig out of. I don't know if I'm articulating.
No, I think you are, right? So if a student isn't achieving in 3rd grade and they go to 4th grade, then they're still going to need that skill level of those foundational skills. And so what does that look like as they move forward?
Something I would like to add to that a little bit is like state testing is an incredibly stressful time of the school year that like kids and teachers are like, it's a snapshot in time, and so I think like looking at 4th grade data locally might also be helpful, because it's like the first time a kid ever takes big tests that takes a long time, and they're scared, and the teachers are stressed. Like, so I think we might consider looking locally at like 4th grade reading data too, to see.
Or even the cohort as it moves through.
Yeah.
Track the cohort as they're moving through, and doing the state assessment each year, you track the cohort versus just looking at the singular grade. Right, because 3rd grade is the first time they take it, and it is scary, and it's a lot for them, like it would be.
Right.
From 2nd to 3rd.
It's a big jump from 2nd. So instead, it's moving to 3rd to 4th to 5th, watch the cohort move and how they're doing.
Right.
If that makes sense. Because what we hope is that the cohort moving from 3rd to 4th grade, and 4th grade they do better than they did in 3rd, and then they do better.
Absolutely.
Well, and then how does your performance affect your belonging, culture, academic challenge?
Yep. Right. So thinking about it both ways, right? It's not like belonging only impacts academic performance, but academic performance can also impact belonging. And so, you know, as we look at this data, again, I'm going to use the language of like complicate, like how are we complicating the data? And I appreciate thinking about 3rd grade reading. Like, we can't only look at 3rd grade reading in isolation. We have to think about what that student is going through. Taking statewide assessments is pretty scary. It's their first time. It's 1 day in time. If a student shows up feeling ill, they're probably not going to do their best. So they have breakfast that day. Like, there's all these different things that we want to better understand so that when we look at that data, we can see a whole picture instead of just those numbers. So I'm going to stop us there because I feel like we could keep talking about this all night, which is really exciting. And I want to just remind us that we're going to keep using this protocol to build our muscle, and we're going to dig deeper into this data. So I wrote down everything we said, and we're going to keep bringing this data back and bring it back at kind of different levels, right? We'll break it down more by like demographics or schools or grade levels so that we can start digging deeper into what the data is telling us so that whatever decisions we're making are informed by the data that we're seeing. So we're really thinking about what the data actually shows. exploring possible interpretations, and then really considering those implications for practice. And so what I want to do now is really to build on this work by looking at examples from our schools. And so all of our building administrators are using data all the time to be able to make decisions within their schools so that everything that they're doing is based on what they're seeing. They're going through a very similar process as you all went through to look at their data, to describe it, to think about those interpretations and implications for practice. And so each school set 3 goals. They set a goal around student experience, a goal around attendance, and a goal around academic outcomes. And then they identified strategies to support meeting those goals, because just setting a goal without strategies isn't going to help us to move the needle. And so I'm just going to ask that as building principals share all their incredible work. For you as board members, start thinking about how schools are applying data to connect student experience with attendance and academic performance, and really consider how this data can help us as school leaders making informed strategic decisions, and how we can support school administrators in really meeting their goals. I know they're spending a lot of time doing this work, and so how can we come together to be able to support them in doing so. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over first to AJ to talk about Chenoweth.
Thank you. So I'm gonna, I know we don't have a ton of time, so I'm probably not gonna say everything that's written here. But just for key data insights, we looked at the Youth Truth Survey results, and a majority of students feel cared for by their teachers, but just like everywhere else, that they feel less of a strong sense of belonging, or that they kind of view discipline practices as fair and consistent. Overall, our last 4 years, attendance has continued to improve, and when I put this data together, our attendance for this year of students who are regular attenders was 73.77%, which I think we are attributing to greater school connectedness. We're doing some things a little differently this year that I think were really helping. I looked at more current data that was in the report, and it's only 24% of the students at 3rd grade met the 3rd grade reading proficiency, but our local data shows that we do have strong growth but low achievement, and that 3rd grade reading score, it's a binary score, so there are a lot of students that were close to passing, and so I think looking at those students and figuring out how do we get those students to pass as 4th graders could help. And kind of all these things for me kind of just highlight the need to strengthen student relationships, attendance habits. We talked earlier about how we kind of have this inverse attendance problem in North Wasco, where our youngest students attend the least. So kind of working with parents to get their kids to school, and then really making sure that all of our classroom teachers are using our literacy instruction to its fullest. And then we've really tried to, and this was some work we did last year, change what school kind of looks like from kids have to do something to be able to get to do something. We really want students to be doing the thing all the time, and that's for us more hands-on learning, more engagement in classes, and I think we've done some things this year that are really highlighting that. By June 2026, we'd really like to just strengthen the overall school experience for kids, and sense of belonging, want them to view our discipline practices as fair, consistent, and look at Youth Truth again at the end. One thing I really want to do is look at a couple of those things just as checkpoints throughout the year, to make sure students are feeling like they have an adult that they can talk to, that there's somebody at the school that cares about them, and just tracking that along the way, not just at the end of the year, but then we'll look at it in June, so we know we're making progress along the way. Looking to keep our regular attenders above 70% this school year, and then increasing our ELA proficiency, getting it closer back to that performance target, and then really looking at our iReady reading data for grades K-5 and making sure teachers are tracking that along the way.
Things we kind of have in action for student experience. We're using Responsive Classroom this year, and we're really leaning into that, focusing on kind of logical consequences. It's kind of like a you break it, you buy it sort of model. Really looking at inclusive community building in all classrooms through kind of morning meetings where kids are feeling set up for success for the day. Continuing to do restorative circles to strengthen relationships and really building relationships between staff and students. I think you can hold students more accountable when you have a good relationship with them. And then working to highlight student voice. We have on Wednesdays, we're doing something called Genius Hour. The last 40, it's not an hour, but it's like 45 minutes to 50 minutes at the end of the day. And we have an ASB that has a lot of autonomy over planning events and things for the school. So just like really leaning into that student voice, and then continue to do those morning meetings. Some other things we did this school year that I think really highlight the student experience, which for me ties directly into attendance and academic achievement. Like we prioritize putting science in the schedule every day. So we're using, I can see how many science lessons are taught, and it's significantly higher than it was last year because it's on the schedule and it's prioritized. We also have a dedicated block on Wednesdays for art and projects. So our 4th and 5th graders on Wednesday afternoons are doing Genius Hour, and those look like clubs. So some of the things kids are doing, kind of stole this idea from Carol Wright a little bit, but kids are doing stained glass, they're doing a DIY club and fixing things around the school, they're doing bead art, they're doing some academic kind of games, and it's like the quietest time at the school because I think kids love being at school during that time. And that's when our ASB happens. And for attendance plans, so we've established an attendance team where we're looking at kind of barriers and trends to kind of coordinate some interventions. We post weekly attendance by grade level outside, send that out on Parent Square. We have a youth outreach worker, our attendance secretary. We're working to do some proactive outreach to families that are below attendance. And then we're going to start looking with that attendance dashboard in Oregon Data Suite, bi-weekly or weekly in our PLC team, so where our grade levels meet together at attendance, and then having teachers prioritize reaching out proactively with a phone call or a positive message home to families to encourage attendance. And then as far as academic outcomes go, really just looking at strengthening Tier 1 instruction. With that Wednesday schedule, we still leave foundations in. It's our K-4, we use that program for literacy, like a foundational literacy program. We still leave that in there. Looking at our iReady data, either weekly or bi-weekly in those PLC teams. And then we're really trying to do, as a leadership team, when we do any sort of training or staff meeting, include a instructional routine or strategy and model it for staff. Yesterday we did like an all-staff AAC device training, and we really tried to, and that's like an augmented communication device, like an iPad sometimes, like we have 10 or so students in the general education setting that generally could use those. We tried to model some like ELD and language frames and just like talking routines that the adults could use so they're feeling more comfortable using them so they can use those with their students. We've also tried to do more co-planning and co-teaching with our English language development department to try and get some of those students that are learning English to be proficient sooner so they're able to meet those academic tasks. And then not just having Genius Hour be a fun time to do things at school, but look at like embedding
like literacy within those or learning within those. So those are some of the things we are trying to do over the channel.
Jay. Let's go ahead and shift over to Luke. Colonel Wright.
So our goals at Colonel Wright are tied to pretty closely to superintendent's goals, so that when you're looking at data relevant to our school, it should be very similar. So what you're seeing tracks easily. Our youth truth perception survey showed 48% of our students responding yes to the question, when upset, is there an adult in the school you can talk to? Another 38% responded maybe, and the difference said no. So the goal being that we're gonna improve overall experience, and we're gonna measure those increases by students reporting that they do have at least one trusted adult in school, that they perceive discipline practices as fair, and that they're able to report that their classes are in fact academically challenging. That perception data, that survey, that school experience thing, we're gonna put that data in front of our teachers and have them work with the perception data, which we started back in August during our in-service days. And then we're rolling out over the course of the year different professional learning focused on best practices around building relationships, what is focused on equitable discipline, our constructive, or our responsive classrooms across the 3 schools, makes it easier for teachers to talk about their practices and shared experiences, and then looking at what kind of instruction is going to feel meaningful to kids, makes them want to pay attention in class. The conversation earlier about what is culture, right? In the elementary schools, the 3, 4, 5 students, those are the students who actually respond to the survey. It doesn't survey K2, but the questions are like, are kids busy in class? Are kids on task? Do they seem to be doing work? That kind of stuff. So that's how they're measuring school culture. And so that's the connection there for us. Looking at attendance, we have about 70% of students at Colonel Wright who currently qualify as regular attenders. So our goal is to be implementing a more comprehensive and intentional attendance improvement initiative across the grades. And we're looking at, again, district-wide, all schools are establishing formal attendance intervention teams. We're looking at what are the root causes, we're monitoring the progress, so we're pulling the data for student attendance and tracking it over time, and then establishing some intentional outreach. We're figuring out how to get teachers to be the point of contact for most attendance intervention without it being additional work for them, but making it part of what we do. So that ties in to district-wide initiatives as well. And then finally, at Colonel Wright, our academic achievement is focused on first graders and their high-frequency words. Our first grade teachers wrote their goals for their professional evaluations around that, and a lot of the research and learning that we've done in the last couple of years around reading and the science of reading shows that actually it's in first grade where really key indicators of success happen and growth is needed. So our teachers wrote, they looked at their diagnostic at some of the sub areas of student reading in first grade, and they identified high frequency words as an area they felt they could really leverage, both because it's part of the program and also because it's something you can sneak in practice in other places really intentionally, you know, in passing times and on the wall and in little games and things. So we wrote our school goals connected to that so that whatever we're focusing on is augmenting what the teachers believe they are going to be able to work on and find success in. So those are our three goals across those areas and where that came from, how we're hoping to approach it.
All right, so I did the same at Dry Hollow. We're basing the 3 goals in alignment with all schools for the district. So I looked at the Youth Truth Survey that says 35% of our 3rd through 5th graders said they enjoy coming to school. So looking at that sense of belonging and how we can improve that. Our attendance data for the beginning of the year, so the month of September is where we took the first measure, shows that 37% of our students are chronically absent, so they're less than 90% of the time. And so I based one of my goals off of attendance. And then our beginning of the year iReady diagnostic data showed that only 4% of 3rd grade students were at or above grade level in math. Now, this is a one-time snapshot at the beginning of the year, and it's also pretty typical to see a dip in scores right after a curriculum adoption. But I thought, well, there's no place to go but up with that. Yeah.
You are right.
All right, so the goals, we are introducing, it's basically like Genius Hour, like you heard AJ referring to. We're calling it Curiosity Quest time. Every Monday afternoon, we have an hour, and I wrote, I will support teachers in designing and implementing student-centered, deeper learning experiences that promote inquiry, critical thinking, and engagement. We want students to want to be at school and want to be engaged in their learning and letting them have some autonomy in their learning as well. My second goal, by June 2026, Dry Hollow Elementary will decrease chronic absenteeism by 5% from that current rate of 37% to 28% through the implementation of targeted family engagement, consistent attendance monitoring, and so we have a monthly attendance team that has been established, and we're looking at specific kiddos who fall into that range of the chronically absent and putting interventions in place. Positive recognition systems that promote regular attendance. I try not to put too much stock in the positive recognition, only because at our elementary level, the kids don't often have any control of whether or not they're in school. And so we don't want to create a gap where we're recognizing kids for their parents getting them to school. So we're pretty careful about that. And then the third goal, by implementing a walk to learn model during WIN time, which stands for What I Need time, 3rd grade students will receive targeted instruction in math that aligns with their individual iReady learning levels to accelerate growth and close achievement gaps. And that's something we established last year, but we have a new 3rd grade team this year, and so we've kind of taken that opportunity to mix it up a little bit. And so students are really getting, like in a 40-minute block, they're getting 2 20-minute interventions that are very quick and very targeted to what they need skill-wise. And then, so plans and action, I spoke a little bit to this during the reading of the goals, but teachers will receive a minimum of 2 professional learning sessions and ongoing coaching focused on integrating deeper learning strategies within our Curiosity Quest time. Collaboration and idea sharing will occur during grade level team meetings and staff meetings. Kind of shifted to use our staff meeting time a little less like, here's the information you need, to how can we collaborate together to make learning more engaging for students. I will utilize our current attendance data systems, but mostly I'm using Oregon Data Suite. Our youth outreach worker, Maria Bailey, she is connecting with some of our families when they need a specific intervention, offering support and connection to different community resources, family communication channels, just trying to use the channel that works the best for each family. Teacher check-ins and support from our attendance team to address attendance concerns. And then grade level teams will implement the Walk to Learn model 5 days per week during WIN time. Last year we were doing 4 days, but we stepped it up to 5, using flexible groups based on ongoing iReady data and teacher input. The teachers will receive coaching support from our instructional coach, Katie Garrett, and use iReady instructional tools to guide small group instruction. So with those quick 20-minute interventions, the kids are up and they're moving and they're having fun. There's lots of laughter happening, and taking kids outside to shout their skip counting, and just really fun things happening that are just quick little snippets to help kids close that gap.
I have a question.
Yes.
Okay, so it seems like at all the elementary schools, there's a significant non-attendance or chronic absence, right? And then with North Wasco County, as you mentioned, has an inverse problem, but everybody else is like, why is that? Like what's happening in North Wasco County that's creating this number?
I mean, like anecdotally, like in the stories that like families tell, I mean, like we have families that struggle with like gas money. Like I think our in Chenoweth specifically, we have like some apartment complexes that are within the walk zone that families don't feel comfortable having their students go there. Driving their kids there, and then there's no sidewalks. So when it snows, like so I think that's some of it. I think.
So do we have good evidence to take that information so we can go to like the committees to communicate with the city and the.
I think we worked on it a little bit. Like you know, I was a part of some of that, like with the safe routes to school, and like we were in a couple of different projects. And one of the projects was like a sidewalk on 7th Street. But I think some of the guidelines from the state like prohibited that from happening, and 10th Street receives more automotive traffic. So
those were good improvements last year. But and then,
So the first, when we come back together for like our first, we're going to call them data drips. That's what we're going to focus on first is attendance. Okay. And so what we can do during that time is bring in some of the work that was started in the past 2 years over kind of looking at some of the problems of practice and what work has already been started. I know Dr. Bernal has done quite a bit of work with community partners around attendance. So we'll bring all of that when we come together so that you all can see both what has happened in the past and then where there's opportunities for us to really continue that, to deepen that work.
Okay.
So more to come.
Let's go. That's a good question. Great question.
Yes, great.
All right, Principal Kilgore.
Well, the middle school, just the conversation of using data and keeping it in perspective is like, this hurt our feelings so beyond, like speechless hurt. Like there is no way I would have never have guessed that the students didn't feel like they belong, like I can't get over it. Anyway, knowing all the stuff. But as pitiful as they were, the highest rated survey themes for your Wildcats were belonging and peer collaboration. And the definition that kind of in our scope was that students feel welcome and can collaborate with classmates. And an example question was, I really feel like a part of my school's community. And culture. And culture was students view the school culture as respectful and fair. There were a lot of questions about fairness. So for example, just a simple question, discipline in this school is fair. The lowest rated survey themes were academic challenge, and that the definition was kind of how students feel they are challenged by their coursework. For example, my teachers explain things in a way that I understand. So like that question really stuck out to me because it's like you could just dig so deep into just that question. And again, are they answering like, is it too hard or is it too easy? And probably some of both. But an example, oh wait, where did I leave off? Sorry. Oh, do they explain things in a way that I understand? And then relationships was, ouch, one of the lowest. Do they feel like they receive support and personal attention from their teachers? And an example question was, how many of your teachers are not just satisfied that you pass, that they actually care that you learn? Which I feel like is exactly why all of us are here. And it's just, anyway, that hurt. Interestingly though, relationships, for example, teachers in my school work together to improve instructional practice, along with school safety, according to your Wildcat teachers, was one of our highest rated. And so just that disconnect of the students feel completely opposite as the adults, big pill to swallow. So overall, the highest rated survey theme, according to our Wildcat parents, though, was school safety and communication and feedback. And I'm going to take that as the biggest win, because if they don't feel safe, they're definitely not going to come. So I'm going to take the little tiny wins in that and move on. Student experience goal, that the principal will strengthen the student experience through supporting purposeful and intentional character-strong SEL lessons during homeroom. Additionally, providing more cultural experiences that showcase and reflect the diverse student interests and cultures inside our building. And that's new this year, trying to just come from it from a different perspective than we've tried to get kids to come and help them feel like they belong. For example, we just hosted our first intercultural celebration of sharing and community by hosting a Salem-based group showcasing Mexico and Latin America through music and dance. And then our Wildcats got to participate in a hands-on piñata making activity that was super fun and turned into this huge competition. And the middle schoolers do love to be challenged with competition. So just a great experience, and we have plans for more of those. Our attendance, the goal is that the Dallas Middle School will continue to build upon our 80% attendance incentive policy, conduct individual intervention meetings where a success plan is made, and collect and review data with our attendance leadership team to identify causes of absenteeism and school intervention strategies to improve student engagement and reduce chronic absenteeism. Academic outcome goal, the Dallas Middle School will continue to build on our intervention meetings and raise our expectations for promotion. We will work hand in hand with our Middle School Matters campaign, collect data and review to identify barriers to successful academic experiences and reduce the number of failing grades. Additionally, we will prioritize iReady in both math and reading and use collected data to make a master schedule that sets students up for greater academic success. And that's been a really big conversation on our leadership team, is just looking at our actual master schedule, and does a 7-period day make the most sense or not? For our action plan for student experience, a key focus area is enhancing the Wildcat student experience is to elevate cultural opportunities that celebrate and reflect the diverse backgrounds and interests of our students. In addition to our most recent event, we are planning to host a Polynesian and Native American celebrations that highlight sharing, community, and connection. For attendance, just a little bit more on that, intervention meetings have been a powerful way to bring our parents and Wildcats together face to face, allowing us to not only say, but truly show how much we are invested in each student's success. The strengthened relationships between school and home have been tremendously beneficial. Over the 24-25 and 25-26 school years, we will collect and analyze data to better understand the overall success and impact of these efforts. This year, our YAL will begin conducting home visits to strengthen connections and support between school and families. Plan of action continued for 80% attendance incentive policy. It has received an overwhelming support from parents. We believe that after-school activities like dances are a privilege designed to celebrate students who consistently engage in their learning, follow school expectations, and maintain at least 80% attendance. While some may view this policy as punitive, our intention is quite the opposite. It serves as a positive incentive to encourage regular attendance and student accountability. The impact is already evident. We just did our data. I just made my last phone calls yesterday for our first fall dance, and it shows a 50% improvement from the numbers from last year, which is like, Like, we'll take the crumbs, so that hopefully is working. Academic, once again, intervention meetings play a critical role in advancing our goals and supporting our step-up plan for higher promotion expectations. And for Shudi and I being a brand-new admin team to the district, I think we both really believe in it and want to do it, but it also has just made such a great opportunity for parents to get to see us face to face and get to know us and what we're trying to do at the middle school. And overall, they've been so positive and great, which has really strengthened our faith in our parents also. So we also are going to launch a Middle School Matters campaign, which we are optimistic that it will have a strong impact. In addition, we have redesigned our homeroom class structure to include 2 dedicated iReady days each week, one focused on reading and one focused on math. And then the last thing, all of you are very cordially invited. On Monday, the 10th, at 10, we're having our Veterans Day Assembly recognition and inviting the veterans for lunch, and we're having wonderful celebrations. So if you know of any vets or your neighbors, or you just want to come check it out, come have turkey dinner with us.
Then you can come to Dry Hollow for ours at 1:45.
There you go. Thank you.
All right, so I've been doing this for 32 years and I'm more excited this year than I've been in 32 years. Dallas High School's got great kids, it's got great staff. There's a lot of great things happening there and I encourage you all to come and visit. There is an error in my key data insights. It says 35% of the students, pretty similar to what the other ones have, that sense of belonging, and it's something that I think is so important and I'm so focused on. Before I came here tonight, I had a 2-hour meeting with our site council. Every building here has a site council that's made up of parents, staff, and students. And we went over our building data tonight. We spent a lot of time on that. And in March, when we come back together, we're going to be talking about the 9th grade on track, and I'm going to tell you about the new program that we will be launching at the end of this year with the incoming 8th grade class to make sure that they're not only on track, but they're very successful through high school. So we're working on that right now. My site council had some great ideas tonight, and they volunteered to step up and help with some of that. So we've also built a good team, I believe, with Donna at Innovations Virtual. We, over the last few years since Donna's been there, we're seeing numbers graduate that we never saw before, okay? Because she's getting some of the toughest kids in our district to graduation, so she should be commended for that.
Yay, Donna!
I'm also working with the Dallas Middle School. We're trying to strengthen ties between that because they're our kids. They're coming this way, right? We got to know what it is that they need ahead of time. And so I've got plans to meet with Shudi and Sherry in the next few weeks to start talking about that transition, because I really want to work on the transition between the middle school and the high school. I think it's critical. I think especially for that key group of kids that are most at risk of not graduating. They need that support and that bump to get to a successful time in high school. So my students on the site council volunteered to make a survey of the kids to ask them about what kinds of things could we do to improve you feeling part of the school. Okay, what kinds of organizations do we not have that you would like to have? So we're really looking into their experience and what kinds of things, it's their school, what kinds of things they should have for them. Okay, and I'm sure there's some stuff out there. The absenteeism is absolutely a problem that's linked to a lot of our achievement issues. We've just got way too many kids. We have a group that are way over 10% absent, but we also have another group that's very close to that. And if we could help that little group move up into the less than 10% absent group, it would make a huge difference. We have a lot of kids in the 87 to 89% attendance rate. So we're kind of focused on that. We're running weekly reports at the high school, calling the kids in, talking to the parents. I'm very blessed to have some incredible new people at the high school, some people who are just working their butts off. The cell phone policy has made some huge changes in such a short amount of time. I've got some very happy teachers about that. Thank you very much. And it's made a difference. I can tell you without any data that the bullying and harassment that kids were doing to each other before is way down. And that the kids' overall demeanor is way up. They're being nicer to one another. They're talking to one another in the hallways, and it's a pleasure to see. As far as the graduation stuff, like I said, coordinating between the high school Innovations Virtual, and the middle school, I think is essential. We're working with that site council, and we got some very determined people on our site council that really care. Their kids are going to school there. They want to give back, and it's, they're doing it. They're there for a reason. They're not getting paid anything, just like you guys aren't. And they want to see some improvements, and I believe we're going to make some big improvements in the high school in the next couple of years, especially. The one thing that I kind of have an issue with, as far as data goes, is the 11th grade state test. Because I have administered that for several years now, and last year I decided to become the 11th grade state testing cheerleader. So when I went in, first of all, the parents can opt them out, okay? We try our best to keep the parents from opting them out, but you have parents who will opt them out all the way from elementary school all the way up to high school because they don't see a purpose in the test. They don't know why we've given this terrible thing, and they just don't want their kids to have any part in it. A lot of our best kids are opted out. Our highest performers are opted out. At the same time of the year that we're giving that to the 11th graders is AP testing, okay? So those parents and those kids want to focus on those AP tests so they can get college credit. So it kind of leaves us with a group of kids, and I try to come up with everything I can think of why they should take this test. And they always go, do we have to do this? Is this required? And without saying no, it isn't. But it's very valuable data to us, which they could care less about. I try to tell them, hey, if you get high enough scores in the math and the English, you can prove to us you know English or math, and we can give you some extra credits and stuff. And encourage them. And for some of the kids that are very low level, it's just a terrible thing to put them through. It's torture. They sit there and they want them to write long paragraphs about stuff, and they can barely get there, and they're struggling. But even when they're trying their best, it's a torture paper for them sometimes. We try to break it up. We try to do everything they say you should do to make it an easier situation, and it's still tough. So I'm not, I'm not so focused on the 9th or the 11th grade testing scores, which is what the state uses to give us a report card on. What I'm more focused on are our ELA grades, English Language Arts, our math, and the core subjects, and comparing that to those kids. Are those kids graduating? Are they doing well in those classes? That's a better correlation and a better statistic to look at. So there's not much data at the high school level. All the elementary schools get all their nice little tests and stuff that they give all the time. We get one, and it's the end of their junior year. So, okay. We are adding some other things. So we are trying to collect more data on them at the secondary level. The culture, like I said, is improving. We have a gentleman coming in February 27th, I believe it is, that we're bringing in from Texas, a young man who has a very incredible story he's going to share with our kids. One of the things that frustrated me to no end this year was we had a little incident with racism, and it was not acceptable. And I had parents in my office on a Sunday morning. I called them to my office on a Sunday morning at 7 a.m. to talk about it. And then we had a parent meeting, which I called 95 people into my auditorium, parents, kids, and everything. We talked about it again. And I stated the fact that if this continues, this will end. This sports season will end, because we won't tolerate that. So I am very proud to report that they've had a good season. All of our sports have had excellent seasons. As a matter of fact, they're all going to the state playoffs. We've got 14 kids in cross country. We've got the boys and girls soccer program. We've got, what am I missing? Volleyball, yes. This Friday, the volleyball team is playing, and we're going to have a watch party at the school at 3 o'clock in the auditorium. So if you want to come watch the volleyball team, hopefully demolish, go through people, then come at 3 o'clock on Sunday in the auditorium. Yep. The leadership, Friday, Friday. Saturday, I'm supposed to let everybody know this, I got a text message from our athletic director, Jim Taylor. So our fields are a mess. They're like sponges right now. I walked across the one after the soccer game the other day and my shoes filled up with water. So what we got today, we've said they're just not gonna be ready for Saturday. We're gonna move our soccer games to Hood River. We got Hood River to give it to us, so it's very nice of them. On Saturday night, they're gonna play under this lights.
Yeah.
And they've got covered seating. So for those of us who are watching, we can stay somewhat dry. So at 5 o'clock is the boys team, at 7:30 will be the girls club. So they're excited, we're excited, and it's going good. We're having a good time, guys.
I can't believe Jim's willing to play sports in the river.
Yeah, it was a long day of conversations, let's just put it that way.
We'll take it.
It's
Yeah.
her, yeah, we'll take friends.
Anyway, that's basically what I have to say. I will say that we are doing a lot of stuff all at once, and we're trying to do our best. I'm just amazed at how well we're doing, and I look forward to seeing some more data in the future about how we're doing. If we can get the chronic absenteeism under some control, the culture and climate are coming along, and then the education, the kids are getting more serious. Just minor things that we've enacted about attendance and participation and stuff have really improved the attendance rate, kids in sports especially. Mr. Taylor said, you don't come to school enough, you don't play. And something I'll eventually talk to you about is the no pass, no play. I worked in another district where there was a no pass, no play policy, and the kids it was amazing. They just, okay, we have to pass our classes, we'll pass them all.
That's right.
So we raised the bar above the state minimum, and they did. The kids will do that. So we'll be coming back to that. And like I said, I'm excited to talk about the 9th grade student success program that I've got in the works and as it comes together, so.
Awesome.
All right, Dawn.
Thanks. All right, you're up, Donna. Well, to piggyback on Phil's experience, we have a partnership, and that's what helps our students grow and graduate on time. And the 5-year graduation rates are also possible because we have a program that is catching these kids. Our school is really a safety net. So this focus for us is really about student experience and building trust with the students again, because they have lost trust and they've lost their sense of value in themselves and potentially many times with their families and also with their school community and their broader community. So our focus overall with all 3 programs is the virtual school. That the high school right now, the virtual high school has 163 students in it. And the in-person high school is hovering right around 100. And this year we have 59 seniors online and 27 seniors in person. And it's the largest senior class that our small little tiny staff has ever had. We go, how do we get these kids back on track and graduated either in their cohort or make a really great plan and encourage them to graduate next year and not give up. And that's one of the hardest things to do. And so far, really what's made the school successful is partnerships with the high school and with the high school programs. As Phil's really talking about the sports, we do have a lot of athletes that are in our program as well when they participate. So when you're cheering for the Dallas High School athletes, you're also cheering for Innovations athletes because they play sports together. And they can also do clubs. They haven't necessarily taken advantage of that aspect, but they're definitely school pride, and our school pride is connected. So I pulled some insights that were specific to certain questions from the U-True survey that really talk about that sense of connection with the community, their sense of connection and the pride that they have, their self-pride, and they're thinking about how can we constantly improve that and have tactics to engage and make their school experience feel valued, not just in school, but in their broader lives. And the highest rated engagement question was, my teacher's expectations make me want to do my best. However, they're not taking pride in their schoolwork, right? They're still not feeling confident that they can do it. And literacy, as AJ was correlating, there's definitely a large correlation between the students' literacy and they just can't access the information to meet the standards of graduation if their reading level isn't at grade level. And many of the students coming in their grade level is extremely low. So common literacy strategies, also where we're not shaming students for that and encouraging them to really show their vulnerabilities and grow. So as we go through, the highest relationship question was how many of your teachers make an effort to understand what your life is like outside of school? And this is what I'm really very proud of, and we focus a lot on restorative practices, which meaning it's overarching into their schoolwork and the way that we resolve conflicts, and we teach students to resolve their own conflicts with each other and to be able to feel like conflict is not something that just then makes them leave school, or that then they can't talk to that teacher anymore because they had one incident that they didn't like. Just teaching some resilience. But the lowest rated was how many of your teachers connect with what you're learning in class with their life outside of school. So not dissimilar to the Genius Hour conversation or the deeper learning that you've heard about. That's project-based learning, and associated with that would be school engagement. It's really bringing forward that project-based learning to be able to connect the projects that they're doing into the community and being community partners. So the teachers are already being trained in this aspect of really adjusting their curriculum to be able to make sure that every project has a community connection that can give them back that sense of pride and that sense of value in themselves so that they can become connected to school and then they can graduate feeling prepared to uplift the Dallas community so that we're not graduating students that are reliant on social services, that they don't have pride, or they're addicted, or they haven't overcome some of their trauma and the root cause of absenteeism. And really, the three goals are overarching and they're connected to the district's goals, and that's why our goals here, you're seeing all the similarities in that. So the student experience is very connected to their attendance and to their engagement in their curriculum. So as I wrote them out, they're specific to the in-person school, and keep in mind, I do have the juvenile detention center as well, and the virtual school, and the action steps look different, but the overarching idea of engagement is the same. So really the idea is to focus on their student voice and their leadership, and we are also using Character Strong, which is a district-wide curriculum for building capacity for conflict resolution and awareness of how to take charge of their mental health and feel more valued, and also how to help others, and positive behavior supports. Many of these students have really just heard so much of what they don't do well and what they can't do, and then they begin to believe that they can't do it. And we are working on bringing forward more positive behavior and recognizing students. And the attendance is a very difficult problem. It's a very difficult problem that I know we're all facing, and collectively I appreciate the comments about bringing community in. That's definitely something we've all worked on together. But the idea for innovations is to improve attendance through student engagement and giving them a desire to want to be to school, and to give them that purpose of what is your goal, how can we help you have an education that feels valuable to you, and please show up to do it and to participate. So part of that is that deeper learning, and we are looking for next year for doing some more efficiency with our staffing and looking at some schedule changes that should help students that are working and have some other very difficult barriers to be able to attend school more regularly with an AB schedule. So we're excited about preparing for that, and that's part of that incentive is moving forward with the deeper learning and adjusting the schedule for more project-based learning that allows students to also take those projects into the community and get credit for independent study and work experiences associated with those standards. So the attendance plan is really also focused on our YAO, and we do have an attendance team now, and we're really looking at more preventative measures and making sure we're catching students before they 10-day drops. And we do that through really having success meetings that are also academically related. So all of the action steps really have a common theme, which is student voice, understanding what does the student need, making a really clear education plan for that student that is attainable for them at the moment, meeting them where they're at, recognizing that there's a reading level problem, or there's a defiance disorder, or there's this or there's that, and doing whatever we can to lift them up into that process of, hey, you can do this, you can graduate, you can do that. So I know that you've been listening to a lot of people, and I appreciate you all holding space for all of us tonight to share. And it is, we have big jobs, and I tell you, my staff they're bought into really caring, and the relationships that they build are really valuable, and it's what's keeping us together. And our motto at Innovation is Together We Rise. And we just stay as positive as we can and keep moving forward. So thank you. Thank you, Phil, for the camaraderie and support. It really is our success measure.
Well, we are a little bit over time, so I'm just going to close us out. But before I do so, I just want to share a deep appreciation for all the building administrators for the incredible work you are doing. I know that this just is a tip of the iceberg for what your day looks like and what you are doing day in and day out to support students and families and all the things. So just deep appreciation for you all. And we will do more of this work. I think you hopefully got a chance to at least see some of the work that all the different schools are doing, to look at some patterns across the schools and some really unique opportunities. And we really do hope that you show up to schools, because the more that you're there, the more you can really see all just the beautiful teaching and learning in action. I have just a couple of questions just to think about after tonight. Again, we're really going to keep talking about data. And so just for you to think about as you're in schools, as you're looking through data, that continual connection, what you see between student experience and academic outcomes, we want that to be a constant theme this year. As you heard from all of our principals, this is something that they're really thinking about. And so we ask that you kind of think about this connection as well. Thinking about what questions you want to continue to explore. So we already have some data that you want to explore. If there's something else that comes to mind after tonight, send me an email, send Dr. Bernal an email, so that we can really make sure that we curate these sessions for you, so that you really feel like they're a valuable use of their time. The last question is just, how can the board use this information to guide our decisions? So really thinking about not just looking at data and then not thinking about it after our sessions, but how are we really using this to deepen our practice, to build our muscle around looking at data, and then really to support schools all across D21. So our next steps, if you want to go to the very last slide, our plan right now is just to do, we're going to call them data drips. And this is just going to be like a little drip of data each month with a focus on a different common metric. So in December, we're going to focus on regular attendance. Again, we saw really high level data tonight. We're going to dig a little deeper, looking at school-based data, looking at demographics. In January, we're going to look at third grade reading. In February, we're going to look at 8th grade math, even though that was one of the common metrics we talked about earlier, because that's going to be added by the state. It's really important we talk about it. In March, we're going to look at 9th grade on track. And then in April, we'll look at graduation rates, both 4-year graduation and 5-year completion. With a goal of at the end of the year, we're going to give you that self-assessment one more time and hope that you feel more confident in what the different pieces of data and metrics are, so that you can speak confidently about that in your role as a board member. So I would just like to thank you all for participating tonight. Thank you for dealing with me trying to facilitate this online. It's really hard when I can't read body language, but hopefully next time I will not have the flu and I will be in person with you all. Just appreciate you and appreciate your time and staying a little bit late tonight. And I'll turn it over to Dr. Brunel to close us out.
I want to echo what Dr. Ivy said. Principals, I really appreciate each of you and the hard work that you're doing every day in your schools. I'm in your schools, I see the work that's happening, and there's some really amazing work happening in all of our schools right now, thanks to your leadership. So really appreciate all of you and the hard work you're doing. And we are all looking forward to bringing forward these data drips where we can go deeper into each of these areas and begin to observe it, analyze it, interpret it, ask the hard questions, and that will guide us in our next steps and how we get all of these indicators up, because that's the goal, right? So I just want to thank everyone. Board members, I do want your self-assessments, because we need to collect that so we can...
No names, Donna.
Yeah, no names, just pass those to Renata, or you can pass them to me, either way. And I'll give them to her. So we can get your baseline data, and we'll grab Jose's and Katie's too.
Thank you, everybody, and especially the people with day jobs, we all do, that you spent time with us and informed and shared. Very much appreciate your time to be here. And with that, we need to do.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, Allie, are you still there?
Yeah, I am.
So this is how geeky we are, you guys. So I just got a text message from Laura Carroll.
Yeah.
That I haven't been this excited. This is about some reading curriculum stuff that we're going to do. I haven't been this excited since the birth of my granddaughters. We can change the narrative and help middle school kids read. And if it doesn't work, at least we try. I think it's great.
Tell me the same thing, and I'm like, girl, that's
Tell Allie, thank you so much for the support and help. So thank you for doing that pilot.
Of course, I'm really excited. Yeah, that'll be a lot of really good data to look at too, and those teachers are incredible.
Oh, yes.
Okay, thank you for sharing that, Sherry.
Yeah. Good night.
Yeah.
Night.